everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be diving into the two final Lisa Eldridge palettes that I have in my collection. I bought all 5 of them. I first put up my review of the Sorcery Palette along with the lipstick and the lip liner in that shade. The last video I uploaded was my review of the Cinnabar and the Muse palette, and today is all about the Vega and the Myth palette. If you guys haven't checked out my review of the other 3 palettes, I will link those videos down in the description box down below. So let's go ahead and jump into a few details on these palettes. Like I've mentioned, these palettes retail for $68. They come in 5 different color combinations, and they come in 6 different formula options. At this point, I have used all 6 of the formulas, and in my final thoughts, I'm going to go through and share my favorite formulas and which palette of the 5 are my favorites. I'm probably going to rank them. These palettes are refillable. You can buy refill options for each of these. You can't buy the component separately. It's my understanding that Lisa Eldridge and her team are taking it under advisement, but as of right now, you cannot buy these individually. If you want to customize them, you have to buy one of the 5 color combinations, and then you can buy refills and you can easily pop out the shades. They come out very easily. Not easy enough to where you can worry about tipping it or anything, but when you tap them, they do come out and you can customize it from there. Let's go ahead and jump into the tutorials of me using each one of the palettes. And in those tutorials, I kind of break down which formulas are in each one of the palettes and kind of share my thoughts along the way as I'm using them. Then we're going to go ahead and get into the swatches and comparisons. I'm going to share some swatches and comparisons of these palettes next to other palettes that are out there and what I have in my collection, so you guys can see how they compare. And then I will go ahead and get into my final thoughts and share my thoughts about these palettes. In my final thoughts, I might rank them. I might rank my favorites of the 5. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the applications of these 2 palettes, and I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. I just opened it up and it is really pretty. It's beautiful purple tones. I'm excited to play with this palette. It's really, really pretty. Lisa Eldridge has 6 textures. So this palette has 4 velvet matte shades, 1 top coat shade, and 1 metallic shade. First shade in the palette is Nocturama, and that is a velvet. The second shade in the palette is Illusionism, which is the top coat shade. The third shade is Mauve Decade, which is a velvet shade. The fourth is Faded Amethyst, and that is the metallic shade. The 5th shade is Victorian Trim, which is a velvet. And the 6th shade is Violet Stone, which is also a velvet. I'm excited that this palette has 4 velvets. I've been personally loving the Seamless Matte and the Velvet Matte. It's just I've just been really loving it. So the fact that this palette has 4 of those, I'm very excited about it. Those are the shades. And you'll notice that this top coat shade is kind of similar to the same experience that I had in the Muse palette. I was really hoping that the Muse top coat shade would just have a little bit more to it. And these just, in my opinion, don't have enough. Even if it's not like super sparkly, it doesn't have to be like super glittery or anything, but just a little bit more pearlized, I think. I think the top coat is probably my least favorite texture of the 6 textures, personally. There's a couple of different things you could do with this. You can do more of a neutral eye look, maybe using these 4 shades, or you can obviously make it pop more with some of these shades. So I think that's kind of what I'm going to do. I want to kind of pull out all the stops and just play with it. I'm going to take the Sonia G blender brush, which, by the way, you guys, I have been loving the Eye Fusion set. I have gotten more use out of this set. I swear, I absolutely love it. So I'm going to grab this shade first. I'm going to sweep this in the crease, kind of using it to add some definition. And I just love these seamless mattes. In fact, I have a feeling that once I am done reviewing them, I will probably pop them out and customize them and make me a full seamless matte palette, because that's what I've been loving. I'm gonna take a smaller brush, which is the Builder from the Sonia G Eye Fusion set. And I'm just gonna apply that like right at the crease, like right there. I really like that color. It's really pretty. And that's about as far as I can build it on me. It doesn't really want to build much farther than that. It's just more of a softer color, which is good because there's so many dark tones in this palette. You kind of need one of these tones that are a little bit lighter, right? So it's a good thing. Now I'm going to go into this color and I'm going to use it as the base. Now, I'm not really worried about it being even on the lid because I'm going to go over it with the metallic. But now I'm just kind of slowly bringing it up and into the crease a little bit over top of that color that we have down. Now I'm going to grab this shade right here. Gosh, that's pretty. And it's not loud, right? It's really kind of toned down. All right, now I am going to take a fluffy brush and I'm gonna go back into this shade right here, and then I'm gonna grab that shade. Build it here on the crease. And then I'm gonna go into that magenta pink color. I am now going to grab this color with a flat-tipped brush and bring that right at the base of the lashes. It's a good black, you guys, because it's easy to blend. Now, I am going to go into this color and kind of go over top of it right out here, just to kind of make it a little bit darker at the base of the lashes. Okay, now I'm gonna wipe so I can get my line here good. And I did get some fallout. I probably got more fallout with this palette than I did the others. I love the way this eye look turned out. And typically I don't wear these types of shades, but because it's such a soft tone and the way that it blends, I've always struggled getting a traditional matte formula in this shade to look decent without any harsh lines. And this is so incredibly easy to use that it's almost kind of fun to create it. Because this is so dark, so I want you guys to see what this looks like before. I'm gonna go into this top coat shade and we're gonna see what it looks like on top of this dark shade. I've been a little hard on these top coats because I just am not that impressed with them. So I'm going to pick it up like this. So on the darker shades, it makes it pop a little bit. It does. It looks pretty over that dark shade. So if you have the Cinnabar palette with that top coat, yes, I said that wrong earlier. So when I was earlier talking about the top coat in the Muse palette being not what I thought it was, I meant the Cinnabar. So this is the top coat shade in the Cinnabar palette. And that shade might be pretty over a dark shade because that looks really pretty. It's not, you know, I do wish it was a little more intense, yes, but it works with that darker metallic. Now I'm going to take a brush and just buff out this line. And it's so easy. My experience with all of these palettes is that if you have a line, it's super easy to blend out. So now I'm going to move on to the lower lash line. And I think I want to use this color. let's see what the top coat looks like on the inner corner. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of this. Just to add a tiny bit of sparkle. Okay, so this top coat in this palette, for me, I've had a little bit better of experience than I did the top coat in the Cinnabar palette. Okay, so I'm back. I went ahead and threw on some mascara. Did want to mention, I took this flat brush and I grabbed a little bit of this shade right here and I put it right at the, like right on my waterline on my lower lashes, just to kind of have it give a little bit of depth there, but without putting an actual eyeliner on. And I think it turned out really pretty. I think it's a really pretty soft color for the waterline. So this is the final look using the Myth palette. And to be completely honest with you, this was the palette that I was a little bit concerned with because I just struggle with these types of shades. But this formula is so buttery and so easy to use that I love it. And I love that metallic shade. It's like the perfect color. Because this palette only has one metallic shade, it's the perfect metallic shade for these tones. That's it for the Myth palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the Vega palette. The last and final palette from this collection. See, here's the thing. I've started to really enjoy cool tones. I've always just loved warm tones. And for some reason, I am finally loving and appreciating cool tones for how beautiful they are. And this is really beautiful. I'm so excited. So the textures in this palette, we have 1 velvet shade, 3 seamless matte shades, 1 metallic, and 1 luminous. This palette has pretty much all of my favorites, so that's exciting. All right, the first shade is called French Gray, which is a velvet. The second shade is Smoke and Mirrors, which is a seamless matte. The third shade is Moon Swirl, which is the metallic. The fourth shade is Turbulence, which is the seamless matte. The fifth shade is Supernova, which is a luminous, and the sixth shade is Lamp Black, which is a seamless matte. This is the palette, and these are fantastic tones, you guys. You can tell that a makeup artist put this together, this color story in particular, because this shade is so kind of bluish gray. Having this shade right here will be incredibly useful because anytime I have dove into palettes that have these type of tones, if there isn't like a neutral brown matte to kind of help you to blend this out and not have it look grungy and like muddy looking is very difficult. The fact that this palette only has 6 shades, I am so happy that she chose to put this shade in the palette. She did a good job on that. I am going to first go into this shade. I want to see if this shade even shows up on my skin. I'm going to try it here on the crease. Okay, next I'm going to go into this shade, especially after swatching it. That shade is going to be so incredibly helpful. Okay, I'm going to take a smaller brush and I'm going to go into this shade and I'm going to kind of build up this outer corner with it. I'm kind of using this outer corner to blend because I'm going to be wiping that. For me, especially crossing over and having the mic right in my way, I need to have all that area to be able to blend. I know it looks a little wonky now, but once I cut it, it will pull together. Okay, so now I am going to go in to this shade. See how much better that color is over top of that neutral brown, where it's not too muddy. Just a good choice. I am so happy she chose that shade in that palette. I'm gonna leave that there for now because then once I wipe and I have the structure, I'll be able to kind of build from there. But now I'm gonna move on to the lid. And I love both of these shades. So now I'm trying to decide, like, I think I'm gonna put this one down first and then put this over top. They're so beautiful that I wanna use them both. So I'm gonna grab this shade first. Then I'm gonna grab this shade and I'm gonna go right over top of it. That is stunning, you guys. Absolutely stunning. Now, if you are someone that doesn't want it to be this intense on the lid, I would go directly in with this and I would use a little bit of it and kind of tap it. Using these two together is why I'm getting this much of an impact. But if this is something that is just a little bit too loud for you, I would just recommend using this shade on its own. Now I'm gonna wipe. Now I'm gonna go to the lower lash line and I'm gonna grab this shade. Then I'm gonna go into this shade. This is the black. And I'm gonna focus that right here at the base of the lashes. That black is fantastic. Black does have that blue base to it, so I wouldn't recommend grabbing this black and using it with a warm palette, right? Like you would want to keep it with a cool tone because it does have that blue base. So I went off camera to do the rest of my makeup, and as I was going through my lipsticks to find a lipstick, I realized that I have the shade Myth from Lisa Eldridge. So I'm wearing it right now, and I wanted to show you guys how it pairs with the Myth palette. So I mean, it does look really pretty with the Myth palette, I think. This is kind of a berry color for me. It's kind of a magenta berry, and it goes well with this purple eyeshadow look. It does. So I'm gonna go off camera really quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back. I went ahead and changed that lipstick, which Myth is really beautiful. It is. But I paired it with the Muse lip liner with Petal. And these two together are so beautiful. I love the shade Petal. It's one of my favorites from her. And I love the Muse lip liner with it. So that is what is on my lips. That's it for the application of both of these palettes. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches. I'm going to swatch these two palettes and compare them to other palettes that I find that might be similar, so you guys can see how they compare to what's already out there. And then we will go ahead and jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, I am back to give my final thoughts on these two palettes. I do hope that those swatches and comparisons were helpful. Let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. These two palettes are both absolutely beautiful. I didn't have any disappointments. If you guys watched my review of the Cinnabar and the Muse palette, the Cinnabar palette had two shades that were a little bit disappointing. This shade didn't show really up on my complexion. It kind of blended into my skin. It was kind of useless for me in a sense. And then this top coat shade was really disappointing, and I felt like the more that I put my finger in it, it was going to get more and more hard panned. And so spending the $68 for the 6 shadows, 2 of them I was a little bit disappointed in. Now, the Muse palette, I liked all the formulas in this palette, so I didn't find anything wrong with it. It's just, you just kind of need to know that it's just more of a softer eyeshadow look, where it gives you that really soft, kind of romantic look, not a lot of depth, right? And just knowing that as long as if that's what you're looking for, you would love it, right? Now, these two palettes, on the other hand, I am kind of blown away by. Myth was the palette that I thought that I would love the least. Out of all 5 of them, I thought this would be the one that really wouldn't work for me because these are just not my tones, especially this magenta. I was just like, oh, I just can never pull those off. And they're always so hard to work with. But boy, was I wrong. This palette is perfection. It truly is. And even though me being someone that really struggles with color and someone that really struggles with this tone in particular, it was so fun to create the eyeshadow look. It was so fun to blend out, so easy to blend because it was no fuss. There's no fuss with this palette whatsoever. And because this palette has 4 of the velvet mattes, they're so incredibly easy to use. So if you are someone that loves color, but you struggle getting them to blend and look right? Because here's the thing. I am not a makeup artist, nor am I super talented in that area. So I sometimes shy away from these stronger colors because I'm like, oh, every time I do it, it just looks bad, right? Like anytime I use these type of tones in Pat McGrath or Natasha Denona, I just don't always love the look because I feel like it just, number 1, doesn't look like me, doesn't really feel like me. And number 2, I don't feel like I have enough confidence in my abilities to blend those types of shadows and make them look good. This palette, on the other hand, like, have no fear. It is perfection. Blends like a dream. And that is why in the Cinnabar and the Muse palette review, I said over and over how much I love the Seamless Matte and the Velvet formula. I am in love with it. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say I like this formula even more than the cream formula from Tom Ford. And I've been really loving the cream eyeshadows from Tom Ford. In fact, I've been using them a lot. But this formula is even better than that. Even though this palette contains a top coat shade like the Cinnabar palette does, this looks really beautiful over top of this because it gives this color a little bit of sparkle. Well done on this palette. It is perfection. Now, the Vega palette, same exact thoughts. I absolutely love this palette. And like I've mentioned, when I was getting ready to use this palette, when I swatched it and I saw this shade, because it looks a little bit cooler in the pan, this shade does, but when you swatch it, you realize it's more of a neutral brown. That was genius for this palette because this is such a strong cool tone palette. Hard 10. I love both of these palettes, both of them. I can't find one negative thing to say about the Myth or the Vega palette. They are perfection. Absolute perfection. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and rank them. My favorite palette is the Vega. Absolutely, hands down, I love this palette. I do. I love it. I love it. And I never thought I would say that because this blue was a little intimidating for me when I saw the images of it, but my gosh, do I love this palette. It is so good. Number 2 is the Sorcery, just because holy smokes, these shades are so special. They really are. And even though these are not shades that I am typically going to wear on a regular basis, this will be the palette that I reach for when I'm wanting this type of eye look, because how simple it was. I created 2 eyeshadow looks with no fuss, and I feel like this is a very easy, wearable, colorful palette, right? That's what I'm looking at it from. I have a hard time with color, and this was very easy to use and very easy to create one gorgeous, colorful look. So that's why this is number 2. Number 3, I have to say, is the Muse, only because this is more of an everyday wear. And like I mentioned, if you're someone that really likes a lot of depth, this is not going to be the palette for you. This is very soft, kind of everyday tones, not really loud, very easy, very romantic, kind of daytime wear, right? Like that's what this palette is. The 4th, definitely the Myth. The 4th, oh yeah. Again, these 2 were kind of neck and neck, right? And I just had to decide which one I would wear more, and I would wear the Muse over the Myth. So that's the reason why. But this is absolutely, if you love purple tones, you will flip out over this. You will literally flip out over it. It's so good. And then the 5th is a Cinnabar. And obviously the reason for that is because of these 2 shades. So those are my thoughts. That is my review of the Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow palettes. Sound off down below. How many of you guys have picked up these palettes? Have you received them yet? Which palettes did you get? And share with us if you like them or not. I'm really curious because it seems like there's a lot of hit and miss out there. And I have to stress this. If you are someone that really likes a dramatic eyeshadow look, these are probably not going to be for you. These are kind of soft and muted in a sense, but still very beautiful. So if you like those super sparkly, you know, really gorgeous looks like that you could get from like Pat McGrath and stuff, these probably might not fit that need. But for someone like me that loves those softer, more easy on the eye, kind of more smooth eyeshadow looks, they're right up my alley, right? So it just all depends on what you like. But for me, they've been worth the money, and I'm so excited to create an all matte palette. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys all have a wonderful holiday with your family and friends. I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.